Long time no see! As most of you may know, we've been hard at work on animate, the animate course. On top of a full-time job and working on the course, I'm not left with a lot of time to actually focus on the channel and focus on YouTube. So I hope you can forgive me, and for this video I'm going to be showing a clip from the course where I do a full walkthrough of Max, our feature quality Blender rig. And aside from all the crazy features that you're going to see on Max, we've actually added some additional features based on requests from our animate community, including a proxy rig option where you press a single button and you can watch your animation play in real time. Now I should mention that we're not currently taking on students, at least not until around August of this year. So if you'd like to stay up to date with what we're doing with the course and all the course updates and release information, you can head over to our website and sign up for our email list. Now I have one last thing, I swear, last thing, because I know this is going to come up in the comment section. Yes, Max and May, the rigs we're going to talk about, aren't for sale, but we are working currently on a character and more rigs to come that will have all the features you see in this video, and they will be up for sale separately from the course. They will be part of the course for course members for free, but if you like to just purchase these new rigs, then that will be an option. So by watching this video, you'll actually know what features these future rigs will have as well. So with all that out of the way, let's hop in. Max and May are feature quality rigs exclusively offered to animate members. In this video, we're going to go over the main features these rigs have and show you how to use them properly. We decided to combine the walkthrough of both rigs into one video because they're essentially the same rig with only a few differences with the hair and clothing, which we'll talk about at the end. So the rigs come with selection layers where you can add and take away controllers all across the rig. And as you can see, we have them separated in main controllers, sub-controllers, and tweakers. And that's the same for the fingers, for the arms, for the legs, etc. The way to access these controllers is by pressing N. And once you press N, you should have access to Max's UI. If Max's UI doesn't show up here on this tab for you, don't worry. Just go ahead and go to Script in the very top. Make sure you select Max's UI and then press Run Script. Once you do that and you go back to animation, you should see Max's UI appear and you have access to these buttons. So let's start things off with the God controller. In Max's UI, you have access to subdivisions, so you can increase Max's subdivisions to make them look smoother. I recommend not doing this when you're animating because it slows down your rig. So I'm just going to leave mine at 0. You also have the option to get rid of the jacket lace controllers right here. You can turn those off and on. You can turn off mesh, different parts of the body. So when you're animating, you don't get distracted. Let's say you're animating a walk cycle and you like to just animate the legs first before you move on to the rest of the body. Well, if you don't want to be distracted, you could just have the legs on, then gradually turn on the rest of the body. And all I'm doing here to turn them off and on is just clicking and dragging left and right. So I'm dragging left here, then I'm clicking and dragging right while I'm holding the left mouse button. All right, now let's move on to the cog, or the center of gravity. This is the main controller you use to actually move the character. You move the character around. And as you guys have noticed, the legs are in IK, and so they stay in position when you move the cog. So on the cog, you see the reverse spine. First, let's see what the regular spine looks like. So this is the regular spine controllers. It's in a hierarchy making its way up. So the bottom one controls the top controller and so on. So if you move this one's not going to move, but if you move the bottom one, the entire thing is going to move. So let me just zero everything out. Now with a reverse spine, so again, this is on the cog, the center of gravity. With the reverse spine, the top controller controls the bottom half of the body. And so it's on a hierarchy making its way down instead of up. So it's literally the reverse of what we were doing just a second ago. Let's go back to our other spine, our regular spine. Okay. Now inside the center of gravity, this controller is the hip controller, and pretty self-explanatory. It controls the hip of the character. At the same time, we do offer some IK controls on the legs if you need more control, or you want to create better poses, or something isn't looking right. You have IK controllers to move around as well on the leg. Now speaking of the leg, let's make our way to the leg. So first off, we have a couple of controllers we're going to go through. We have this back roll or the heel controller, which you can rotate, and the foot kind of banks down or rolls forward, and once the top of the shoe touches the ground, the foot starts peeling off the ground. You also have two of these at the front as well. You have another control in the front that pretty much does the same thing but from a different angle. That's used for rotating the foot just from a different angle. And then you have one at the very tip of the foot, which is used to rotate from the tip of the foot. Down here is just your regular IK controller, IK foot control. That you have your knee vector points. So this is where the knee is pointing, right? Now this is where it gets interesting. When you press the gear on the foot, you have a lot of options. All right, so let's go through these. So we have IK to FK. So this is just us switching our foot from IK to FK. So if you pay attention, the left foot is in IK, the right foot is in FK. And you know, the IK foot sticks. The FK foot is for when the character is usually in the air. So that switches that. Now, what if you're in the middle of a shot and you have the character's foot doing something like this, and you want to switch FK to IK? Well, if you do that, you've been moving the IK control and not the FK control. So when you switch, the foot goes back to where the original controllers of the FK leg were. So the way you deal with this, and the way we deal with this, is that we have snap FK to IK and we have snap IK to FK. So what this does is that it snaps the FK controllers to the IK position. So in this case, we can press snap FK to IK. And what that does is, again, it matches the FK controllers of the leg with the IK controllers we have now. So when we actually switch to FK, the foot stays in the exact same position because the FK controllers are now in that position. Pretty cool, huh? All right, let's go back into IK. I'm just pressing, I'm selecting everything and I'm pressing Alt S to reset scale, Alt G to reset translate, and Alt R to reset all rotations. I'm just zeroing everything out. So a couple more things to talk about is, well, we have the IK stretch, which self-explanatory. When you have it on, the foot can stretch. When you turn the IK stretch off, you're not able to stretch anymore and the foot just becomes overextended. Let's leave that on. We have a toggle pull, which just gets rid of the knee target pivot. So when you turn it back on, this thing is back. And down here we have IK parent, which is the parent of the IK control of the foot. Now, so right now it's on God, and God is this node. I know your whole life's been a lie. So God is this controller right here. And currently when we move the center of gravity, you know, the foot stays still because it only moves when the God controller moves. So when we move this, the feet move, but anything else, it doesn't move. Now, if we switch the IK parent to cog, which is the center of gravity, then when we move the cog, that controller moves with the cog as well. So that's that. And down here we have pull parent, which is essentially the same case as IK parent, except it's for controlling the knee target pulls. So right now it's set to foot IK, which means when we rotate the foot, it moves with the foot. But if we switch it to God, for example, when we rotate the foot, it doesn't move. But if you rotate the God, then that's when it'll move. Now, if you zoom in on the foot, there's one more thing here that you might miss if you're not paying attention, and that is the pivot. So you have this controller that's inside of the foot, but it's sticking out on each side, and you can pull it out, and it is pretty dang cool. You essentially have your own pivot point wherever you position it. So right now we put it here. Now if we start rotating it, the foot starts rotating from that location. And if we move it back here, the foot starts rotating from that location, and etc. So you can even have it up here and the foot would start rotating from this position. I personally think that's a really neat feature, and it can definitely come in handy when you're animating shots. Now, I want to go back to the IK parent that we talked about earlier. And there's a feature I didn't mention, but could come in handy. So for example, if we set a select everything, set a key on everything by pressing I. Now, if we have our IK at God here, and then at frame 20, we switch, let's set a key. At frame 20, we switch our IK parent for the foot to cog, right? And we go a little bit more forward, set keys on everything, and change this to, let's say, chest. So these are all different. So right now this is chest, then it's cog, and then it's the world. Now, if we press this button right here, and we say, make everything into the God node, and you press OK, now when you go along your scene, all of your IK parents will be the same. They will all be number 1, which is the God controller. But it'll switch it, but it'll keep the position of your foot without changing it. So there's another cool feature that we have here. All right, so right away, I'm going to move on to the hands because it is pretty similar. So the gear on the hand gives us a bunch of other options. So we have FK limb follow, IK to FK like the foot, FK to IK snapping, IK to FK snapping, IK stretch, which I will show you guys. So let's actually go ahead and in our Max UI over here, let's turn on our fingers tweak controllers. So now we have more controllers on the fingers. We can actually move these. So let's go ahead and change the fingers to IK. So just like the foot, we have IK and we have FK on the fingers, right? And you can move these like how you would move a foot, except it's for the fingers. And the cool thing is, again, the stretch, we don't have a stretch here, but if we go to the gear and turn on the IK stretch, now our fingers have stretch. Let's switch the hand to IK, and now we also have a stretch for the hand up here. So IK stretch, let's turn that off. Try and stretch our hand. It just overextends. And if you notice, like everything's acting weird on the fingers because they're in IK, right? So use IK fingers very rarely, but for particular things that it'll be very useful for. So let's go ahead and change our fingers, turn our IK fingers off. So it's FK. Now if we move the hand, you notice that the hand just overextends and it doesn't stretch. Well, if you go to the gear, you can turn on IK stretch, and now the hand will stretch. All right, now let's turn off IK stretch as well, because we're not going to be using IK. And so the rest is pretty self-explanatory on these controllers here. So we have one more special thing we're going to talk about, but I'll get to it. But we're just going to talk about the IK parent. So just like the foot, you can have it so the hands only move when the God moves. So right now in IK, it's set to God. But so when we move the cog, the center of gravity, the hands stay still. We can go ahead and go to the gear and change this to cog. So now when we do move the cog, the hands move as well in IK. And just like the foot, we also have a pivot here. So you can bring the pivot out and rotate the hand from a particular angle if you like. Let's say the character wants to stand on the tip of their fingers and you want to move the hand from the tip of the fingers. Well, you can just move this here and start rotating from here. How freaking cool is that? Okay, now the special thing I want to talk about is in the gear all the way down we have constraint target, and this is the controller that pops up. This controller is used for constraining weapons, props, and anything. You can constrain anything to this, and the cool thing is once you constrain it to this thing will move with the hand, right? And on top of that, you can still animate this while the hand is moving. So you have another layer of control when you have something constrained to this thing instead of the hand. Let's go ahead and turn that off. All right, now some of the other controllers that we have here. We have the finger master, which you can use to rotate down and up, and it moves the 4 fingers, right? You can rotate in any direction you like. You can also scale it. So if you scale this thing, Max will make it a fist. Pretty cool looking fist too. And you scale it back out. Max's fingers start overextending a little bit, and we even made it so it's like a smooth arc upwards, and it's not really too broken unless you start really overdoing it like this. But don't do that. You should never do that. This is the maximum it'll go anyways. And let's have something cool like that. Cool, so you have your regular FK controllers on the hand, which you can rotate around. You have some extra ones back here for a little bit more control. These are some of the base controllers. And you have the palm controller lastly, which can come in very handy, but I would suggest not overdoing it with this controller, because you could make things look really weird if you just, do something like that, right? But it can come in really handy to give your hands a better shape, so you can rotate it slightly this way and rotate it down slightly to give your hand a little bit of a better curve. All right, let's zero everything out. Now for the arms, again, when we're in IK, you have the elbow direction controller here, the target controller. Now you can turn on sub controllers, but those are mainly for FK. But when you turn on tweaks, you get these extra tweaks, one on the elbow, which you can better shape your elbow, and some more stretchy ones here if you need to create better arcs in your hands, for example. And these show up on IK, but if we switch this back to FK and we add subs, you get some sub controllers on the FK controllers as well. So let's turn these off. Let's move on to the clavicles. We got some shoulder/clavicles here, which you can rotate and you can scale and you can actually translate as well. Super versatile. You have a neck controller here. And you also have a collar controller. In case you run into any collisions, you can move the collar around, bring it down, bring it up, etc. So on the head controller, we have some more properties here, which you can set the space of the head as well. So right now it's on God. If we switch this to spine and we go over here and start rotating the spine and twisting it, we get something like this. But if we go back to the head and change it to God, and then we start rotating the chest, then the head kind of stays in that position and it only starts rotating unless you move this controller. Another controller related to the head would be the eye controllers right here, the eye direction controllers, right? So right now they have some drive on the eyelids as well, just for a little bit more realism. But again, extra property here, you have a head follow. So right now when the head rotates, the eyes rotate. But if you turn off head follow, then the eyes stay stationary, and even if you rotate the head, the eyes stay in the same position. Let's go ahead and turn it back on. So here's where it gets special. Max's face. Now this thing has been in the works for a very long time, so we hope you appreciate all of our hard work. We've tried to make this as easy to use and as fleshy and just amazing quality as we could. So let's start off with the eyes. Some basic controllers we have are eyelids here, and you can only move them in one axis, which is good because you shouldn't move them in any other axes. We'll give you some extra controllers later, which I'll show you, but you can move these up and down. We have the squash controller here. You can use this to move individual eyes. Let's select this and let's actually scale it so you can scale these. Let's go ahead and turn on tweaks up here. So now we also have some irises. So you can actually scale the iris. You can move it individually if you like. You can also scale what's inside, and if you want to go for a very dilated eye, you could do that if you'd like. Now when you turn on the tweakers, since we're still talking about the eye, when you bring the eyelids up, you also have the option to bring these up. This is something you can use so when the eyelid goes up, the skin underneath kind of follows. So same with here, when the eyelid's going down here, we can use the new tweaker lines that came up to move that down as well. And you can make the character feel more alive that way. Now again, with the tweakers, you have a lot more options to make really good eye shapes. So again, you have these main ones just for up and down, but then you can come in and start moving and rotating these. Actually, it can come in pretty handy too. You can move and rotate these to create any sort of shape you need. Now moving on to the brows, Let's talk about the brows. You have two big controllers here. These are the master controllers. I would suggest not rotating or scaling these and just use these for bringing them up and down. And once they're in position, you can go ahead and bring the brows in. You can create some creases here. And then you can use this middle main controller to translate it a little bit. You can rotate it to create the shape you like. And if you really need some fine tuning, you can use these inner squares to give you a little bit more control. You have two controllers up here. These are for kind of stretching. So you can actually squash down and stretch your eyes out a little bit with these. The pull happens from the brows instead of compared to these ones, which is just from the eye. This is more pulled from the brow and squashed and stretched from the brow. Again, tweakers all along the face for you to have finer control over everything. So making our way to the nose, this is the main nose controller you should be really touching, and this is something you can rotate and move around. So let's say we want the face to have an arc this way. Let's see if we can make something like that. So I'm gonna rotate the nose a little bit this way, and I am going to give the character a little bit of a sneer with this controller. Oh, we have mirror on, so let me turn off mirror. So give the character a little bit of a sneer with this controller, and you have this other pink controller for the cheeks. So I can bring the cheeks up a little bit, and I can use the circle controller on the mouth. When I translate this controller out, I can puff the cheeks. I can make the cheeks go inwards. You see a little bit of gum there, you can move that afterwards. But this is for puffing the cheek. So when the character wants to puff out some air, or if they're eating, you could use this to puff the cheeks out. Now, we wanted the arc to be going this way, I think, right? So let's go ahead and use these controllers that we haven't talked about yet. The face upper and face lower. So be careful with these, because you could kind of break your character pretty easily, break the character's shape pretty easily with these. So just be gentle. So I'm gonna move this a little bit, and now we can tilt the upper half of the body, and with the other one we can tilt the lower half of the body, right? Which then leads us to the mouth. Now we can use the jaw squash and stretch to move the mouth a little bit more that way. And again, really cool tool if you want to have the character eating, you can squash and stretch the jaw here. Now we have these corner controllers which go along the face. So they move in a path along the face. So I'm going to bring this up a little bit this way. Then we have some more sub controllers here that we can actually mess around with. So we can bring this down, make a little bit of a better shape. Metal controllers, bring this here. Cool. So now we have Max doing a little bit of a sneer on half of his face. We haven't touched the other half yet, but pretty cool so far. This is where it gets cool. So if we select the jaw controller on Max over here, we can drag the jaw out. And if we go back to these corner controllers, you can actually scale these. So if I scale this out, we can make the space in the corner of the mouth wider. If I scale this in, it's kind of like a zipper, and you collapse the edges of the mouth, the corners of the mouth. So I'm going to reset that. And speaking of zipper, if you select the big controller on the mouth, the giant green one, you have the option to zip the mouth. And you can use this to create really nice O shapes or U shapes. And so I'm just dragging this left and right, and it's zipping up the mouth and unzipping the mouth. Pretty cool. Now, since we're on the lips, the lip controllers, you have lip curl. You can actually curl the lips in if you want to make certain sounds with the lips, or the character's feeling a certain way, you can curl these in and curl these out. Let's bring this side of the mouth up a little bit as well. And as you noticed, when you bring these up, the entire face moves to kind of react to what you're doing. Again, we're trying to make animation as easy as possible for you guys and as effortless as it could possibly get. So we're gonna go ahead and turn on tongue and teeth. So we have a couple more controllers. We have these controllers that popped up, this one and this one. So I'm gonna go press Shift Z to go into wireframe. Now we can clearly see these new controllers. So I'm gonna select this controller, Shift Z to go back here. And this one, controls the lower teeth. And then once you control the entire thing, you have more options with these smaller tweakers. You can move these around. You could rotate them and get the teeth shape you're looking for. Again, this one is for the upper. You can move this up. You can rotate this down. And I'm actually going to open the jaw a little bit more so we can see in there. Okay. Now, we actually have some tongue controls as well. So this is a FK hierarchy, just like the chest. We can move this around. So on the tip of the tongue, the tip controller has tongue curl, so you can curl the tongue up. You also have tongue thickness, so you can make his tongue look like he got bitten by a bee. And on top of that, you have these dots as well, which then you can use to rotate farther or move. So if I select all these in the back and I rotate this way, the tongue flaps to the left side or to our left side. So it's just, again, some more finer controls for you. So teeth controllers and tongue controllers, some more controllers for the teeth back there, because you can never have enough controllers. That being said, you should try and keep the amount of controllers you use to a minimum. So try and get as much as you can done with as little controllers as you can. Two last things for the head. We have another squash and stretch for the top of the head over here. Remember, this one was for the bottom half, including the jaw, 2 arrows. And we have another squash and stretch on top of that. This is for the entirety of the head, sort of. So it has more control than the arrow, and it's more extreme. Lastly, we have just some simple ear controllers as well, and some strap controllers for Max. So you have some IK strap controllers. You can move the source of the straps if it starts breaking. If we go to the gearbox, you can make it so it follows the chest, which it is right now. So for example, if you do this, it follows the chest. But if we turn this off and then we move the chest, it sort of tries to stay down. It tries to keep the straps facing down. So we're gonna go ahead and turn that back off, or back on rather. Now, the only difference between Max and May really is in the clothing and May's hair. So for Max, we have short controllers, which you get IK controllers for the shorts. Pretty basic stuff, right? And you get the straps. You get these straps right here. On May, on the other hand, when we go to May, you see now we have May UI show up instead of Max UI. You can look at that switch, Max UI, May UI. And for May, the only difference would be that May actually has hair controllers. So you can turn on hair, and now you have a main IK controller, which you can move around here, right? You also have some individual IK controllers for the different strands of the hair, and you have some FK controllers as well, which you can use for even more control. And that's about it. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you have any questions, don't forget to leave a comment. You can head over to Circle and leave a comment there. But we hope you enjoyed these rigs. We really hope you enjoyed them. We spent months and months and months, I think over 7 months now, or closer to 8 months on these rigs. So we hope you like them. If you find anything wrong with them, if something breaks, then go ahead and actually let us know, because we want to hear about it. We want to improve, and I'll see you guys in the next video.